Good day, point spread aficionados from Las Vegas. It is Vegas Legends Winners Circle. This is NFL edition, week 15. And of course, I have two of the best handicappers in the country right here. I am Chip Chirimbes. I'll be hosting this. We have Jim Feist, known as Mr. Vegas, of course, and Paul Bovi, who's still knocking them dead in Las Vegas. And Jim, I'm going to start with Paul this time, if you don't mind. Paul, you got one selection left in the circa. $14.6 million on the line. And last week, you had some heart-thumping experiences with your selections. What happened? How did you get through the weekend?
All right, so here's the deal on that. I had Philly left, and I really figured that they would struggle in the game. And I came back and took Carolina's team total over 15.5, which ended up working out as a hedge because I moved on. But, the option was maybe I would go with the New Orleans Saints, but I never would have been able to look at myself in the mirror if I went down with Derek Carr on the road and left Philly on the table. So I said, you know what? I'm going to hold my nose, push the button, and just hope that Philly could sleepwalk through this thing. And that's exactly what they did. And we all saw the pass in the waning seconds.
We sure did.
That we all thought was a touchdown initially, but it hit the ground. It was not to be. Philly moves on 22-16 in a gut-wrenching white-knuckle win.
All right, Paul, of course, we're wishing you the best of luck the rest of the way out. This, of course, is the Circa Survivor Contest. You get to pick one game a week. Once you lose, you're out. You can't repeat with the same team. So so you're done with Philly. Are there any big names you still have left? Or any big names that are eliminated in situations where you're going to be forced to make a selection you may not have made because there's no other options?
Well, the best laid plans, we all know what happens with that. And I had saved the Chiefs here, and the Chiefs do play Pittsburgh on Christmas. Christmas is a separate week. So they were on the look-ahead line, 4.5-point favorite, but they have not been playing well. Yeah. Patrick Mahomes' protection has been breaking down consistently, as it did on Sunday night against the Chargers. They managed to win 19-17. But now that game would probably line at even. So I do have both Pittsburgh and Kansas City. I'm going to have to choose one of those on Christmas. I have a few decent teams. Atlanta hosts the New York Giants. And, I'm not in the worst shape, but I'm not in the best shape. Let's put it that way. I'm going to need a little luck, 5 more wins, and it'll be a split.
Well, you're still alive, which is a lot more than, I say, 14,000 other people could possibly say.
Right.
Jim, you've been a contest winner out here in Las Vegas numerous times, I believe, and I as well. But did you enter any of the contests this year, and which ones would you have preferred? Would you prefer the Survivor or something along the lines where you made
I did not do this. I did not do the Survivor, but I did do the other in the Westgate and in the Circa. I got in the, I don't know what they call them, but the regular, right. You pick 5 teams a week. I've been doing marginally well with it. Like last week, I was 3-2, and most of the time I'm like 3-2. I've had a 4-1 a couple times. I've also had a 1-4 a couple times. So I'm probably in that 58 to 60% range, but that's not going to win any money. That never wins any money.
Well, you're up against, unless you're betting with the bookmaker, of course, at 58% would stand up really well. But now you're going head to head with the finest minds and handicapping opinions out there.
I've had several years where I've been in these contests where I've hit like 63, 64%, and they didn't cash any money.
Yeah.
Well, they didn't pay as deep as they do now in those days. So, but you can't. I mean, there was one year, one guy won 76%.
Remember that?
I mean, that's sick, and nobody can do that.
All right, thank you, Jim. Now, this is for everyone out there. Remember to give us a like and subscribe. And, of course, we're here every week with our NFL analysis from Las Vegas experts and legends. These are guys who make their living by walking to the window and putting up their hard cash. Jim Feist and Paul Bovi. Hey, guys. It's getting down now. We got week 15. A number of teams have been eliminated. We're certainly surprised at what the Jets have done this year. And, of course, the Niners have been a major disappointment. And now we have a few teams that are fighting for spots, and one of them is going to be Miami, who has won now a few 4 out of 5 since Tua has been back. And Jim, they without Tua, they're a totally different team. I was joking around earlier in the year that I thought he might be the MVP because look at the difference between when he plays and when he doesn't play. But Houston, 8-5 at home, is a small favorite, just about a field goal.
I don't see there's very much difference between these two teams. I think they're both struggling. They're marginal. You'll have the good week, the bad week. Tua being out, it changes the stats for the year. I think they're slightly better, but they're not a lot better than Houston, only because I see that the rookies having a regression year. They've had some injuries. They did lose one of their wide receivers for the season. They lost one wide receiver for a couple of weeks. They've had a marginal year. They'll win, they'll lose, but they're not a great favorite. I would favor the dog here, especially if you can get 3 and a hook. That would be a plus situation for me. These are the kind of teams where you don't want to go too far out on a ledge with them, especially when they're favored, which is Houston in this spot. So I would favor Miami.
Okay, now Miami comes in 6-7, Paulie, and they still think they have a shot. I mean, they can win 10 games if they finish out. Houston, I think they've been a little disappointing to their backers this year. They've only covered 5 of the 13 games. How do you see this one?
The problem with Miami is their pass defense is very suspect. Jalen Ramsey is kind of like a teammate, Odell Beckham. Their resumes are built on their past. Their present is not all that great. Last week, I will tell you that the Jets had numerous guys running behind the secondary, wide open. Yeah. Aaron Rodgers put up big numbers last week. He was 340 yards of passing and missed a few of those guys. And I will tell you, even a guy, Ruckert, got behind the secondary, and he missed them completely. He just whiffed. So I think Houston, even though they did lose a receiver this year, as you pointed out, Diggs, but they got back Nico Collins. I think Houston's going to move the ball. I think the Texans will score between 27 to 31 points, and that's probably going to get you the cover and the over. So I'm going to have to respectfully disagree with Jim here. I don't like the Dolphins. I commend Tua. He's picked up the offense. There's been a resurgence there. But I think on the other end of the ball, they're going to struggle. And they did also against the Raiders. They were in that game with Miami till the bitter end, and then Miami pulled away late. So that's where I'm going to go with the game.
All right, Paul, you mentioned the over on this game with Houston, at least individually as a team. They're 4-8-1 to the over right now in the season. So Stroud hasn't put up as many points as they had expected, and I think they did anticipate a little bit more out of him this season. Oh, by the way, out there, don't forget to watch our daily Winter Circle show hosted by Sean Higgs. You have Matt Fargo on. There's a number of Marc Lawrence. Jim Feist's been out there. Paul Bovi's been out there. And we all have great insights. So that's a daily show right here on gamblersworld.net. And, of course, you can receive Jim's top plays, his premium selections, along with Paul Bovi's on a daily basis right here at winnersworld.net. Guys, I have a game that is a semi-interest. I don't know how it's going to affect the playoffs. Kansas City, I just thought there might be some interest in it because of the way things work out. Kansas City's going to Cleveland. Cleveland, of course, major disappointment, only winners of 13 games so far. 3 games out of 13. Jim, Cleveland's at home. Kansas City's a small favorite. They've won 7 in a row and haven't covered one of those. How do you see the Chiefs and the Browns shaping up?
Pretty amazing stat for the Chiefs. They're plus 56 points on the year, but yet they're 12-1. It's pretty impossible to do that. But that shows you. Paul mentioned that their offensive line is really bad. Mahomes is getting beat up. I mean, the Chargers actually look better than they did last week, although they didn't win. You go into Cleveland, they're right on Lake Erie there. The weather is usually kind of suspect. It can be very cold. It can be very windy. You can get all kinds of precipitation. Jameis Winston, oh my goodness. He is the most I like watching him better than any other player because he will score for both teams. He kind of like a two-way team guy. So he is just wild. He's fun to watch. but they're not going to win a lot of games with them, but they'll be in a lot of games. This game would have been a 6-point game, but because of what's going on with Kansas City, you're looking at 4. You might even be looking at 3.5. I'm not sure. I haven't checked the number this morning, but I favor the Browns. But and the problem is when you're talking about it on Thursday versus a Sunday game, you just don't know what the weather's going to be. But I would favor the over.
All right. Paulie, you look at this. Cleveland has lost 2 in a row, 4 of 5, 8 of 10. Miserable season all the way around. Offense ranked 22nd, defense ranked 21st. There just seems to be no glitz or glitter other than Jameis Winston making every game exciting.
I don't have a play on the game, and
No.
I think Jim pointed out that Jameis Winston creates points, whether he's throwing the ball one way or the other. It's INTs, it's pick sixes, it's touchdown passes, it's Jerry Jeudy. But the problem is, going to the high side on this game, is that the offensive line of the Chiefs, no bueno. The Chargers had 3 sacks in the first 20 minutes of the game, and somehow Mahomes was able to elude the rush the rest of the way. But it wasn't as though he wasn't under duress. He was. He just managed to get away. So I can't rely on this Chiefs offense at all. I wouldn't be laying points on the road with them. As Jim pointed out, the point differential this year is minimal, all things considered, with the record 12-1. So it's tough to lay points because all of their wins are coming by a score or less. They're on some kind of incredible streak with that.
Right.
And I don't want to be part of that. I don't want to rely on them blowing Cleveland out. I don't want to lay points on the road. I don't want to go to the high side, to the low side. So I'm going to take a pass on the game.
I understand that completely. I mean, this Kansas City team is just sort of an enigma here. They keep on winning. They're the least impressive 12-1 team that I've ever seen in the NFL. I mean, usually when you have a team that's 12-1, they've dominated the teams they played against, and they barely win by 1 score every time out, though they do win. So they move on at 12-1. Guys, this has got to be the game of the weekend coming up now, at least interest and talent-wise. Buffalo, who's running away with the AFC East, already clinched 10-3. Got beat last week by the Rams in a big one. I think we all had the Rams last week as one of our top plays. I know I had it as my Megabuck winner. They're going to Detroit. Now, Jim, Detroit, of course, is the juggernaut. That's a team that's killing the point spread every time out there. They're destroying the numbers, 12-1, 9-4 against the points, and yet they're favored by a field goal or less at home against Buffalo. What do you think of that one?
Well, first of all, Buffalo is very good, and Josh Allen is amazing.
Yeah.
And they just had they clinched the AFC East 2 weeks ago. They came out to the Rams. The first half, they looked like they were sleepwalking, but then they woke up. And Josh Allen could do some amazing things on the football field. He is one hell of a talent. Detroit would be a bigger favorite if they didn't have all these defensive injuries, which they had 11 guys hurt. They had 2 players in the game last week that joined the team the day before. I don't think the coach even knew their names, but they played hard. But Crazy Dan, who does a great job and the players love him, he knew he had to win that game with the offense and not depending on his defense. So he made some decisions along the way where he didn't kick the field goal. He tried to run it out. He got, Goff got stepped on. He luckily was able to reach the running back to get that first down. It was an amazing situation, but that's how he coaches and that's how he wins. I got to favor Detroit. They are getting a little healthier on defense. They do run the ball very, very well. They're getting that offensive line back. I can't remember his name, Reader or something like that. That's going to help their running game. They will run the ball, and I do think they're going to win this game, but it's not – you cannot discount Josh Allen, his ability to bring you back. It's going to be a tough game. I would have to favor Detroit, and I would have to favor the over. And I'm going to find ways to play this game in that way.
Thank you, Jim. Paul, this is a great matchup. I mean, Buffalo and Detroit. I mean, Detroit just seemed like a team that's destined to make it to the Super Bowl. But these defensive injuries, Hutchinson went down and I didn't miss a beat. But now the attrition's got to start having some kind of effect on that.
Yeah, I did play this game. And sometimes you play a game because you really like the side, and sometimes you take a number. So when the number popped up on Sunday night, I took Buffalo +3 minus $1.16, figuring that a field goal in this game was going to be gold. And the line has since moved down to 2. And if the line had popped up or the number had popped up at 2, I would have not have pressed the button.
Right.
So I'm comfortable with that position, knowing I have Josh Allen. There's a possibility of a garbage touchdown. And now I know Detroit basically needs a touchdown to beat me. Now, I agree with Jim on the over. Detroit really hasn't been containing teams of late. And these injuries have just ravished their defense. And at some point, it's going to catch up with them. Look, Chicago, who was completely snuffed out by the 49ers, came back on him on Thanksgiving and had him on the ropes. As far as Buffalo goes, their defense, they have not really stopped anybody since the Seattle game at 31-10. Now, I understand they did defeat San Francisco in the snow in blizzard-like conditions, 35-10. But the Niners jumped out and they were running the football. And that's the issue with the Bills. You could run the football down their throat. We saw it again, or traces of it, on Sunday. And what that does is just open up the passing game, because they let that Ram team, which is, the Rams to me are not very good. I mean, Miami just basically, I think they held them to 15 points. Philly shut them down, held them to 20. New England, they were life and death to beat them without several defenders. So I just think there's going to be a lot of scoring here. I would side with the Bills +3. On the side, I wouldn't do anything right now. But yeah, this is a game, even though it's lined at 54, 54.5, and I also took the over at the open, I don't see these teams going under right here.
Yeah, I understand. They both. I mean, with the kind of year Josh Allen's having and the way he's matured and just fallen into the NFL, and of course you have Detroit, absolute offensive juggernaut. I can see this game going over the total. Now, remember out there, you're getting expert analysis and opinions from Las Vegas experts Jim Feist and Paul Bovi. So give us a like and subscribe. And remember that our premier games are being sold each and every day right here on gamblersworld.net. Thank you, guys. I'm telling you, we're coming up with some great information, analysis for the public out there, and this is absolutely free. We do the NFL show once a week. We do a college show once a week, and this week we're going to include college basketball. But don't forget, we are here, and you should subscribe and like the show and share it with your friends. Jim, go ahead.
I want to make note. When this game opened, it was 50.5.
Right. It's 54 now, right?
54.5. I'm
right.
Looking at a lot on the screen now.
When did you, Jim, when did you see that number? Because on Sunday night, when I saw the first click, 54, that's where I played it when it popped up. And then it actually went down to 53.5. I couldn't understand the move. And then obviously somebody bet it back. And now it's, I think, 54.5. But I never saw 50.5. It could be the advanced number. Are you referring to that?
You know what I'll do? I don't want to put it on a broadcast. I'll tell you when I see you.
Okay.
You can call me and I'll tell you.
There you go. There you go. It's a little Vegas insider information there, Jim.
There are some people that put numbers out, and you can get substantially bigger numbers at it. This was. I thought that was a very short number. It was kind of crazy, but yeah, I got that. I got a bunch, and then it went to 51.5. I started giving that out of the service, but then it was 52.5, then 53.5. Now it's 54.5. I'm sure you're going to see 55. You know what?
You're in Vegas, so you probably have some advantages over me. I'm sure you do. Being in Mexico, I have limited access,
right?
And I just didn't get that. But kudos to you, because I think if I could put I'm not going to say my house, but if I could put something a little bit more substantial at 50.5, I think I'd empty my piggy bank.
Would you guys
Well,
buy back? Would you
I,
buy back at
I
55?
know you wouldn't get that far out of line because at any moment, any one of these players can go down. You don't have a Goff, you don't have an Allen, you're not going to get over. But, that's what happens. The injuries, a lot of people, you and I both know, we all know that injuries matter. A lot of players, especially the average Joe, doesn't really work at that as hard as we do. Injuries do matter. You lose a key player, it's very difficult to find a player. Yeah, you can put a body there, but you're not going to find the talent to put there. So injuries do matter. And this time of year, after playing 13 games, there's a lot of people hurt. Like you look at the San Francisco side. You got Trent Williams, who got a terrible situation where he lost his baby. He's also been hurt. You got Bosa issues. You got CMC issues. You don't think that matters to this team? I mean, you got people out all over the place. And then you got on the Rams side the same thing. They played games early. When they beat earlier, they didn't have Puka Nacua. They didn't have Kupp. So all these things matter. And you have to pay attention to the injuries. These are not interchangeable human beings. Some of them are more talented than others.
All right, but when we get to if Jim and Paul, if this got to 55, would you guys buy back? Would you play the under? Would you? You don't at all, Paul? Jim, would you play it if it's 50?
I'm not a guy that buys back just for the sake of buying back. I will buy back if I'm watching the game and I don't have a warm and fuzzy feeling, if that makes sense. And at that point, I realize, all right, I might be in a coin flip situation. And when I'm in a coin flip situation, I don't want to be part of that. I don't want to be a part of like, all right, maybe it'll work out in my favor. I tend to get out of Dodge at that point.
All right.
If you like it, I'm in at 50 and a half. And if it goes to 55 or 55 and a half or 56, I have to think about it. But generally speaking, I'm like, Paul, I don't do it.
Okay.
However, in the game, let's say the first quarter is 0-0. Now you're going to have an adjusted number that might want you to bet over even more because you're looking at a totally different number than 55, 56. And I have to forget about what I have early. I got to look at what's there now. Okay. And let's say the first quarter has 30 points. And now the total is 75 or something crazy like that, or 65. Now you got to say, well, this might slow down, especially if one team's taken off or something happened to a lineman or something. You have to. That's why I sit in front of 4 computers game day, and for 7 hours I don't move.
Now, I will tell you this also. I will tell you this. Sometimes if I have too big a position on the game, and that does happen sometimes. I mean, I really extend myself. Then I start getting a little queasy. It's not a good position to be in because scared money, as they say, doesn't make money. And I'm not going to say I never get scared. I mean, if I'm well into 5 figures, I'm going to get a little scared and I might impulsively hit the button and get out or maybe take some off the table pregame.
Paul, are you trying to say, Paul, that you actually bet big money on these games, or you have more than $50 or $90? I'm just kidding. It's just a joke. It's only a joke.
I'm with you, Jim. I'm probably not as big as you, but
no.
Not far behind.
I've backed off a lot because I'm a little older and I slowed down a little bit.
All right, now there you have it. You got the insights, analysis, and opinions, and see how professionals approach these games on a daily basis, be it totals or sides. Key game coming up here. We have Seattle now, who's won 4 in a row, is going to be hosting Green Bay. Green Bay at 9-4, Seattle at 8-5. Seattle's in control in the West right now. Green Bay has won 5 of the last 6 meetings between these two, and has gone 7-2-1 in the last 10 meetings, Jim. Seattle's at home. How do you see the public looking at this game, and how do you view this game?
Well, first of all, I personally don't believe that the Packers should be favored in the game. Seattle's played well enough to give them enough respect in a very difficult environment to play in, where the weather does impact the game. Not that Green Bay is ever bothered by weather, because God knows Green Bay is a tough place to play too. But wind is also a factor there. Now, there was some wind prediction for this game that was pretty dire, but it's now backed off during the week. It could change again because you're talking about a stadium that's very close to the Pacific Ocean, and anything could happen. But I don't believe that this is the right line. I've never believed it was the right line when they opened them as a favorite on the road.
All right, Paulie, Green Bay. They lose to Detroit last week, though they cover. They had 3 straight wins prior to that, and they lost to Detroit the week before that. So they sandwiched 3 wins in between 2 Lion losses. They're at 9-4. Do you, like Jim? Were you a little taken back seeing the Green Bay open up the favorite here?
I looked at the game, and yeah, I just backed off the game. Because the reason I backed off is that there's an aura of unpredictability with Green Bay these days, but more so with Seattle. I mean, shouldn't be gaga the game on Sunday, because there were 2 interceptions thrown by Kyler Murray, which led to quick touchdowns. One of them on the first play after that, he turned the ball over deep in Arizona territory, resulting in touchdowns. So the game really flipped on those 2 plays in large part. It was actually a little closer than the final score would indicate, but Seattle did have a lot of success running the ball. Charbonnet, I think, ran for 130 yards. He had a 51-yard breakaway run. Arizona was not doing a good job defending it. Seattle did a good job defending the tight end. They held McBride without a catch until I think it was 5 minutes into the third quarter. Previous to that, he had 12 and 12. But I've seen Seattle also come up and lay an egg. I mean, Green Bay, Detroit, on that nationally televised game, Goff was 18 of 18. Let's not forget that. So there has been some erratic play on both sides, and I just can't get a handle on these teams right now. So this is a game I'm going to take a pass on.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised when I saw Green Bay open the favorite here, considering Seattle had won 3 in a row. And then, for the most part, I've seen the public money coming on Green Bay. So it's sort of like no one really cares about the Seahawks. Maybe they're not glamorous enough. One thing bothers me. If I watch Seattle, I want this Walker in the backfield. I know that running back ran pretty well last week for him, but Walker's been questionable and doubtful. He's been in and out. He's been hurt. And
Charbonnet has been better, man.
Yeah,
I'll tell you right now.
Maybe.
I'll tell you right now, Walker's averaging, I believe, 3.7 yards a rush, and Charbonnet is up at 4. I'm not sure that if you're on Seattle, you would want that, because right now, I'm going to tell you, the hot hand is Charbonnet. He also threw to him 7 times last week, 7 completions for 60 yards. Not a lot of yardage, but that's a pretty damn good success rate.
Well, there you go. And I think part of the problem with Walker is he's been injuries. He's been in and out. He hasn't had that. And, running backs, they have to be healthy. My goodness, they're battering rams. They get beat up every single week. So Seattle and Green Bay is an interesting game. Jim, go ahead. You have something for us?
Well, yeah, I do. How good is Jordan Love? I mean, really, we saw him at the end of last year, and he lit the world on fire. But I haven't seen that magic this year. And he does make some very Jameis Winston type plays. Okay, I mean,
Recently,
cross body throw across the field. I mean, come on, some of the stuff. Now you have a much more veteran quarterback with Geno. He's been around about 10, 11 years. He really has been around a long time. And 2 years ago, he had a magical year. Last year wasn't so good. This year, he's a little bit more stable. You have a new coach there who's done a pretty good job with that defense up in Seattle. I mean, that was not the case for a couple of years, but that new coach has got a little bit more and they have some wide receivers that are pretty dangerous. We all know who they are. They've been around a long time. They were there when from Russell Wilson days.
Yeah,
they can play. So it's the environment. I just didn't understand why they were favored there. I couldn't understand it. Yeah. It's just that they're not that. Where is all that magic? that you're making them the favorite. I don't get it.
All right, to wrap it up here, Jim, you mentioned Russell Wilson, and we weren't even going to do this game, so I'm throwing this at you guys. Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, kind of interesting matchup here.
Great game.
And Russell's had a big comeback year, and quite surprisingly, because I think we all had him dead in the water for the last 2 years anyway.
You're right.
Paulie, any thoughts on this Steeler-Eagle matchup?
All right, so the Eagles have not been moving the ball. A lot of that falls on Jalen Hurts in the passing game. It certainly doesn't fall on Saquon Barkley. Right. So there's been a lot of criticism, but also the situation is Hurts has been under pressure. I think he's fourth from the bottom in terms of pressure at this point, meaning the fourth worst. They are fourth from the bottom, meaning bad.
Right.
So it's a situation where you have a Steelers team on the other side. Russell Wilson threw for 158 yards last week. Basically, he's been, in my opinion, pedestrian. He built his resume this year in a game against the Bengals, and it was all dump-offs to Harris and Warren and yards after catch. And then there was the snow game against Cleveland, which they ended up losing, but he did complete quite a few passes. He's not a downfield thrower. The absence of Pickens is going to hurt. I don't see them scoring a lot of points. I do see the Eagles having a better defense here. And if Hurst gets this right, they should be able to move the ball on a Pittsburgh secondary, which I feel is somewhat suspect. The back end of Pittsburgh is not great. They have been lit up a few times this year, but what they do have is a ferocious pass rush led by T.J. Watt, and they can keep pressure on the quarterback. So if I was going anywhere with this game, I would go under the 42.
All right, I think the Steelers, for the most part, have been, I'll say, a minor surprise to most people. I don't think we anticipated that they would have gotten off to this kind of start. Juggling the quarterbacks early in the season, they had Fields out there. Really tough game and tough matchup here. It's interesting to see these two Pennsylvania teams going at each other. All right, for Jim Feist, Paul Bovi, and remember, we are here each and every week with an NFL preview. This is Vegas Legends Winner's Circle. And of course, we will be giving you our complimentary winners. So you're getting all of our opinions and insights and see how professional sports handicappers view the games. Now, our games are out there each and every day on gamblersworld.net. And you can purchase Paul's top plays, my top plays, Chip Chirimbes, and of course, Jim Feist. All right, guys, thank you so much for being with Winner's Circle once again. And I hope we help provide some insights to those out there. And remember to give us a like, subscribe, and even share the program with some of your friends so they can get some of our viewpoints. Anyway, God bless you all. Good luck this weekend, guys. And I'll see you next week.